Hello and welcome, I'm Tafaragadamu. There are close to 300 tour operators in this country. But what is the environment they operate in like? My guest today, Fitsum Gezahegne, is the president of the Ethiopian Tour Operators Association. Thank you, Fitsum, for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Tell me, is Ethiopia, in your opinion, the right destination? Probably that is a bit crude, but is it one of the destinations for any given tourist, you think?
Well, Ethiopia is, of course, a destination actually to be visited by any interested tourist. Just to answer this, I think it's better to see the factors to make a destination an important or a destination to be visited. The first important thing is if the destination has very interesting, various products or something attractive. So the attractions and the products that we have in Ethiopia are various in nature, very much diverse. We have the culture, we have the history, we have the geography, the landscapes, and we have the mountains, we have the desert, we have the volcano, we have the ice cape. We have churches, ancient history, paleoanthropological products, vegetation, birds' life, animal life, wildlife. So in all this, Ethiopia is a destination. Well,
but that doesn't make any given destination the destination.
Well, for me, Ethiopia is the best destination ever to be visited in Africa. So it's the destination.
Well, you're not comparing yourself to the Kenyans. The Kenyans have too many tourists flocking into that country. We're talking about masses of people.
There are various factors for increasing the number of tourists. The number does not signify that it is the destination. If you compare Ethiopia with Kenya, Ethiopia has a very diversified tourism attractions than Kenya. In Kenya, what do they have? They have the wildlife, interesting parks, of course, and the beach, which is not that popular actually. But if you come to Ethiopia, we have almost everything. So in terms of attractions, in terms of the product, Ethiopia is much more better destination than Kenya. But there are several factors like the image that we have, because Ethiopia had been closed for many years. Before 1991, Ethiopia was closed totally to visitors, especially from the West. And tourism didn't grow in the Eastern Bloc that time. So that's a factor.
But that doesn't make Ethiopia exotic enough for any given tourist, because we're talking about a country that has never been explored the way it should have been.
Yes, Ethiopia it's exotic. Actually, we are one of the newly coming destinations in the world. So we are categorized under the newly coming destinations. Well, if you happen to be in Kenya, you can see a lot of tourists, but the products are coming down and they are deteriorating. So Kenya will not be, unless in other words they do something else, it won't be a destination. It won't continue like that. Actually, they have to do a lot. Coming to our country, it is a newly emerging destination. So the vision that we have in Ethiopia is to be one of the top 5 destinations in the coming few years in 2020. So now it is less visited, it's exotic. We have everything which is not touched, not yet well exploited. So we have to work very hard in this regard, I know, but it is the destination in Africa. But what we say from the point of marketing, from the marketing point of view, we say Ethiopia is Africa miniaturized.
Interesting. Traditionally, you have North Americans and Europeans as visitors in Ethiopia. Am I right?
Well, has
the mix changed?
Well, basically we have North Americans and Europeans as visitors, but nowadays a lot of people from China and from India are coming, and also from considerable number of people coming from Japan. Tourism is a very diverse, a very broad concept. So we cannot only say tourists are coming for leisure or for education, for the purpose of visiting, but business travelers are increasing in this country, especially from the eastern part. But coming to the tourists, particularly coming to Ethiopia for visiting, still the Europeans and the Americans are leading.
How many tour operators do we have in this country as we speak now? Do you know?
Very difficult to say because
not all of them are members, right, of your organization?
Well, around 300 are recognized by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism.
And how many of them are members of your association?
173 of them are members of our association.
Why didn't the rest join you?
Well, that's a very good question, actually. Most of them are newcomers, and the newcomers they don't know about us, but now we are organizing several meetings to introduce ourselves to them. But interestingly, most of the tour operators who have got the licenses are not engaged directly into the tourism, in the tour operation business.
What are they engaged in?
Well, several other businesses, and they want to try it. They get the license, and they say, okay, we'll wait for some time until we fully start to do this tour operation business and the like.
You raised a very interesting point. Your detractors say many of the tour operators acquired that license because the government gave them a privilege. For example, they can import 3 trucks, 3 4x4?
Yeah, 3 4x4. Yeah.
So that incentive is quite an attraction, isn't it, to kind of start up this business?
Well, yes, it is. Actually, the tax-free privilege was given to those tour operators who are already in business to maximize their capacities, and on the other hand, to encourage others to join this business. So a lot of people are attracted because this is a very good incentive by itself, and many people, they simply perceive that tour operation is a very good business, and because you are working with the Westerners and you get your income in hard currency or whatever, so they don't do proper business studies, and they just jump into this business.
But isn't it a profitable business?
Of course, it is a profitable business, actually, but there are a lot of challenges.
What are these challenges? Tell me about the challenges, because I think you're milking the cow, aren't you?
No. Well, many people have this perception, but that's wrong. I want to say we are most of our members are working. Of course, this is a business, but they love the business. They love their country, and once it's just like an addiction. Once you start traveling in this country, you love the country, you love the people, you love whatever you see, and suddenly you will find yourself being a patriot who is willing to sacrifice his life for the nation and for the country. And most of us are engaged in this business not because of the profit, but because we are in love with this country. We are true Ethiopians, and we love our country. And on the other hand,
but the love for the country is not the sole reason for you to survive as a business person in this.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. That's why I think the government wanted to motivate us, and give incentives in this regard. They know that we are patriots, We don't have to fight, and we don't have to shoot somebody else, but we are working hard. And tourism is, it has a very interesting multiplier effect. So the money that we get goes to the lower level of the society, to the rural areas, and that's a very interesting thing. So we love our country. That's the main thing. But on the other hand, it's a very good and interesting business, even though you have to labor very, very, very hardly. This has a lot of reasons. The main reason is that the challenges are the image that Ethiopia has. Ethiopia has a very negative image in the West, especially in Europe and in the United States. We have a very bad image related to famine, drought, and civil war, which had happened years ago. And still people have that in their minds. So whenever you are saying them you are from Ethiopia, and you are telling them about Ethiopia and trying to influence them to come to Ethiopia, then they will say, well, I'm coming to see starving people or people dying on the streets. So this image is very bad, even though it's now we are doing a lot to change this image, and it's being changed.
How do you change people's perceptions? Because tourists want to go to safer places. That is rule number one.
Absolutely.
And you have things happening like what happened when is it, about 3 months ago, the hijacking
that's
of
in
the
January.
That's how do you reverse these kinds of things?
Well, actually, frankly speaking, Ethiopia is the most one of the most safe countries in the world. It's the safest country in Africa. Incidents can happen anywhere. It can happen in America. It can happen somewhere in Europe. We remember it's a very recent incident. The 9/11 thing happened in New York, and thousands were killed. And in Europe, in several places, even recently, we know that it's happening almost everywhere. Terrorism nowadays is international and it's global. And if it happens in Ethiopia, it's not a new discovery, or it's not a new thing. But when it comes to a question of safety and security, particularly related to traveling, you have to relate it to the frequency. How frequently is this happening? Even though with that, this is the incident happened in Ertale in January is really bad, and it's really shocking for us. And we know that a lot of people had cancelled their trips, and many people are frightened to come to Ethiopia. We know that. But that is an addition to the perception that they had before. But when you compare it with other countries like South Africa or Kenya or Israel or Egypt or whatever, it is still the safest country. This happened just once in a blue moon or whatever. So if you compare it with other countries, Ethiopia is still the safest country in the continent.
But it's the most expensive destination.
Absolutely, yes. That's true. That can be because of many reasons as well. The first thing is that Ethiopia is exotic. So we went to, it's just opening, we are opening our doors to tourists. It's not a cheap destination. Ethiopia is not a destination for mass tourists. We are not looking for thousands of people flocking at a time, and our attractions are not ready for that, and they are not by themselves. They are not made to be a destination for mass tourism. But on the other hand, there are several other factors, like the vehicle rental price in Ethiopia is very high. That resulted from the taxes that you have to pay. The import duty tax is extremely high in Ethiopia. If you compare it with Uganda, for instance, they pay 6% there, but here you pay over 200%. And the duty-free privilege is only for 3 cars, and with 3 Land Cruisers you can do nothing. You can only move a maximum of 12 people at a time. So if I have, say, 30 people or 40 people at a time, then I have to have another car, or have to rent from somebody else, and then the price goes up. Airlines are charging very high, hotels are charging very high, and entrance fees in all the places are increasing from time to time, and there are what they call local guides everywhere, and they are increasing from time to time, and they are a must to take. And all these things combined makes the Ethiopian trips, the price of a trip to Ethiopia very
good. But you are not claiming that you are providing the best services.
That's the paradox, actually.
Now look at your guides, look at your drivers, look at the whole business plan that many of the tour operators have developed. Look at the number of people who have joined this industry. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't show a very rosy picture, does it?
Well, this has to be, discussed in detail. Actually, I have to explain the nature of the tourism business. Tour operation business. A tour operator is a person who combines several products. He is a wholesaler, combines several products given by other parties. Third parties, what we call, and these are the hotels, the destinations, and the local people, and all other service providers. So when you combine all this, the price is high. But services are not given only by the tour operator, but also by several other service providers whom the tour operators subcontract.
Right, I understand that there are services like the places to stay, accommodation, and all that stuff. But when you talk about your particular business offering tour services,
I'm coming to that.
Let me say, for example, you don't have the best of guides. There is no single. There are several institutions that train guides.
That has to do with the training.
In some cases, your tourists know much better than your guides.
Absolutely. That's in some cases, yes, you're right. I've been in this business for the last 18 years, and I know that these problems are existing. This is mainly because of lack of proper education in this country. We have not even 6 or 7 colleges and institutions in this country working on training tourism professionals like guides, tour operators, or whatever. So most of the people who are working on this field are not properly trained. And even those people who got trainings from these institutions are not trained to the best of the service that's required by the tourists. So when they come out, there are ethical problems. Most of these institutions do not give ethics as a course. And this is one of the things that our association is fighting. And we are always telling the institutions to incorporate ethics in their courses, because that's very important. And on the other hand, this is given, especially the tour guides, the tour guiding professionals you mentioned, is given at the TVET level at this time, which is a very, very huge drawback to this industry.
That's technical and vocational
education. And at that level, you cannot serve those people. Tourists are from various professions. They can be doctors, they can be botanists, they can be, scientists or whatever. So the guide that you are assigning has to have kind of comprehensive knowledge, because tourism by its nature is multidisciplinary. He has to be, a person who was upgraded knowledge and practice. So our institutions are not manufacturing such kinds of guides. But what we are doing now is we are trying to upgrade the levels of our members. We give trainings, we give consultancy services to our members, and also to the guides that they are employing. And we are always assisting our members to upgrade their services. And on the other hand, we are also communicating with the institutions to upgrade their education. So we are supporting them.
Do you have a code of conduct?
Yes, we have.
Is that something that is effective? Is that something that's put in place?
Yes, it's put in place 5 years ago, our code of conduct. Recently, about 2-3 months ago, the Ministry of Culture and Tourism has also published code of conduct for tour operators and also for the guides. So this is nowadays it's becoming very vital, and people are reading, people are following up, and hopefully in the coming future things will change. Coming up to the service, mainly the problem we have on the service is from the side of the hotels and from the side of the local guides everywhere. So we are also communicating with the hotelier associations and the hotel professionals associations to upgrade their services and the quality of service that hotels are providing. And also we are in contact with the regional tourism bureaus to upgrade the level of local guides.
A long way to go, don't you think?
Of course.
Is that bumpy?
A lot, yeah. Very bumpy.
What is the feedback that you get from the tourists like?
Well, most of the feedbacks, they like the country. I say 100% of the visitors, they like the country. They like the people, they like the attractions, they like the weather, they like everything. They like everything. But they don't like the hotels. That's the main drawback. Hotels, the service of the hotels and the infrastructure of this country has to be developed. And the government has to give due attention to new hotel buildings. I mean, they have to make proper follow-ups. And on the other hand, they have to encourage people to build hotels and lodges, especially very close to tourist destinations.
You deal with several government institutions, primarily with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, and also with the Customs Authority, and the Investment Board or Authority, and so on. in a nutshell, what is that relationship like?
Well, we have very good relationship with the Ministry of Culture and Tourism because that's the umbrella of the Ethiopian tourism. And we have extremely good relationship with them. We have also very good relations with the Ministry of, the Investment Authority or other ministries like Customs and Revenue. But we have a lot of problems with them as well. And especially with Ministry of, Customs and Revenue, we have...
They have been coming after you for several months now.
Yes.
Because for tax evasion, for misuse of the privileges that you've been provided, and so on. Aren't these two valid points, you think?
Absolutely, yes. But, they say that, but we always tell them that they are against the law. They don't. They are not interpreting the proclamations properly, especially the VAT, the value-added tax proclamation is not interpreted properly because we have two main issues with them: the VAT and the duty-free vehicles. Concerning the VAT, the VAT proclamation puts on Article 7 that service exporters are zero-rated or VAT exempted. But the Inland Revenue and now the Customs and Revenue Authority had been treating us as travel agents. They are mixing up the travel agents with tour operators. They are two different professions, two different businesses. Travel agents are commission agents, but tour operators are service exporters. But we had been treated as travel agents for many years, and they had been treating us like that according to Article number 25. But according to Article number 7, we had to be treated as service exporters, and the National Bank of Ethiopia considers tour operators as service exporters, which is, the body that entitles an organization or an industry to be exporter or not is the National Bank. The National Bank considers us as service exporters, and however, the Inland Revenue or the Customs and Revenue Authority is not. That was the misunderstanding because they thought they were understanding the tour operation business like the travel agency business, but the travel agency business is something else. The travel agency business is a buying service from somebody and selling it to somebody, adding a commission. Like if you buy the ticket from Ethiopian Airlines and sell it to the traveler, you add some kind of margin and you sell it, so you have to pay the VAT from the margin. That's according to Article number 25. But we had been treating like that. But in practice, tour operators are different. We are exporting the service. We are bringing tourists from abroad and taking the service here. In other words, we are exporting services. We are importing hard currency to this country. So we need to be treated according to Article number 7.
So you haven't convinced the authority?
We are still trying.
What does it take to sit down, talk about this issue, and settle the case? What does it take?
We had this discussion for several times with them, and especially a couple of months ago, we had a half-day meeting with higher officials, and they understood this. They got the idea, and they said, okay, we have to work on that for the future. And the problem with the taxes now, they call tax evasion, is, since they had been treating us like that, we asked them to close the file because, even in the past, that we had been mistreated by the authority, and illegally we had been treated actually. So they had to consider this, but they are discussing on that issue, and recently they sent us a letter which is not according to the discussion that we had. So we need to have another meeting with them in a few days' time actually.
We have a tourism council, right?
Yes, we have a tourism council, but the tourism council is not functional, to be frank with you.
Why is not? Because I'm assuming that cases like this could have been brought to the attention of the council, and they could have
absolutely, that. Well,
I'm not saying that. Of course, you have a case, but there could be some other issues that you need to address before you settle the case with the customs authority.
That was the main objective and the main aim for the foundation of the Tourism Council. But we are a member, we are not the decision makers, and we're not the chair of this council. So maybe it's better to forward this question to the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. But this is our question as well. We are even asking for the last many years for the founding of the tourism board. That would have been something very important, because there are several people from all organizations represented there. So you can raise all the issues concerning the country's tourism problems and challenges. So they could have found solutions very, very quickly and easily. But we have at the lower level, we have some sort of a committee that involves all these parties. So we discuss this almost every 2 weeks. And the Ministry of Tourism and Culture and Tourism is chairing, and all these associations, organizations and ministries are also represented. But this is not on the higher level. The National Tourism Council is very important because it's the highest level. Ministers are represented. And we are represented, and everybody, all stakeholders are represented on the highest level. So the decision makers will be there, and if there is any problem happen, then they could make the decision easily. But now the committee is represented by lower level managers or directors, so to say. Then the decision making power is very limited.
What do you think would the face of Ethiopian tourism be, in your opinion, 10 years down the line?
I see it in two ways. If we are working according to what we are planning and according to our vision, the national vision that the Ministry of Culture and Tourism has and that we share with them, and if everybody is concerned, and if we can establish the National Tourism Board or the National Tourism Council, then we could be very fruitful, and in the coming 10 years, I'm very sure that Ethiopia will be one of the 5 top destinations in Africa. But on the other hand, if we continue like this, we will be going downhill. And that would be a disaster for many of us, and especially for the people of Ethiopia. And the image that we have is negative, and it would be more than that. So maybe it will reach to the level that we cannot revert it back. So we have to work very hard.
Well, Fitsum, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you.